For those who keep track, I have not posted a YouTube video in some time, and I got a good reason why, is because I've not been in country. I actually took some time off and returned to my other homeland, which is England. And while being there, I was kind of thinking, well, Harvest Right sells a lot of freeze dryers around the world, not just to America, but they sell them to people in Europe and other countries. And we have all these videos on making candy for Americans, but what about people who don't live in America? So before I came home, I went by and purchased a whole bunch of British candy. Now, some of these candies are similar to what we have here. Now, for example, I did buy some Werther's Originals, and I'm not sure. No, these are the chewy ones, and I don't know who actually makes these, but we're going to try these. Now, in freeze drying candy, and that's a loose term, freeze drying, because freeze drying implies that the candy has water. In many cases, they don't. But anyway, in freeze drying candy, you're looking for a primary thing, is the candy can't melt. If the candy melts, it's just going to be a pile of goo. So whatever candy you try to freeze dry has to maintain its shape and form at about 145 to 150 degrees. Chocolate, unless it's been tempered a lot, will just melt into an ooze, and then when the vacuum is applied, it'll bubble up and it doesn't do much. So I got some of these creamy toffees, and these are a little bit different from what we have here, but these are soft. Another thing I got, now I've heard a lot on the internet that you can't buy Skittles in Europe. Well, that's not true. There's lots of Skittles. Now, some of the flavors are different, but England and Europe has lots of Skittles, but these Skittles are giant Skittles, and I don't recall seeing giant Skittles here in America. Now, I did buy a whole bunch of these things. This is my absolute favorite, wine gums. These were the first kind of jelly candies, and these do not contain alcohol, but they have the flavors of different wines, like port wine and champagne and things of that nature. Well, I bought lots of wine gums because these are my favorite. So I'm hoping wine gums are going to be good. And then I have fruit gums. I have Fruitella, which is similar to another candy we have here. I have these Tibor, which are like Mentos. And then I have a Yorkie bar, that's a famous one. I have Poppets. So I have regular Poppets, which kind of have an orange center, and I got mint Poppets. These are kind of like junior mints, but they're round. Let's see what else do I have. Now I did buy these Curly Whirly Squirrelies, which are like chocolate covered worms. That's going to be interesting because the chocolate's probably going to melt. And then I got these also Fruitella fruit drops and a Boost bar. So, let's see, and then I also have, Dairy Milk Caramel Nibbles. I'm not too hopeful with these because I think these are just going to melt. So, I have all this candy from Britain or from England, and I'm going to try it out in my freeze dryer. But before I go through an entire cycle, I'm going to grab a tray, a good old Harvest Right tray, and I'm going to heat my oven to 145 degrees, and I'm going to put all these in a hot oven for about 15-20 minutes just to see if they keep their form or if they're going to melt. If they melt, they're not going to be a good candidate. If they keep their form, then that's a good sign that they'll freeze dry well and turn into all sorts of weird things. So anyway, here we go. I took a sample out of each package for my pre-test. So Everything's ready. I'm going to put it in the oven, 145 degrees for 15-20 minutes and see if they'll maintain the shape. And here they are, right out of the oven. Okay, so we're going to take a look at some of these, and I can tell from the chocolate, like this one right here, that's just melted. That was my Werther's. That was a soft Werther's, so that's not going to work. This right here is pretty soft. That was the Curly Whirly worm things. They're caramel and chocolate. That's not going to work too well. This one right here, that is soft, but still kind of keeping its shape. That might have potential. The Yorkie bar is almost a pure liquid. So, I mean, that it's liquefied. That is definitely not going to work. The Boost bar is pretty much liquefied. That's not going to work either. But everyone else seems to be keeping their shape, and they're warm, and they're kind of soft. So we're going to go ahead, with the exception of maybe 3 of these, which are mostly chocolate. The next step is I'm going to put these back in the ovens, bring them back up to about 155, 160 degrees, and then I'm going to throw these into the freeze dryer and put a quick vacuum on them and see how they react before we do the full candy mode on these candies. Okay, this is the test run of all the candies. The chocolate ones I put by themselves because since they're partially a liquid now, I didn't want them exploding. And I'm not putting the candies in the tray because if they explode and swell up, I don't want to end up having to clean up a big mess. So this is just a test batch. I can see something back here purple. Something's growing really big there. And I'm not quite sure what candy that is. We're at 10,000 millitorr. You see, I can see that the chocolate here is starting to boil. 4,000 millitorr. Okay, we're at 1,500 millitorr, and we're going to go ahead and end the test there. And release the vacuum here. Had a little bit of moisture in the chamber there. And we'll take a look at the candies and see how they came out. As predicted, the chocolates just basically melted without doing anything. So the chocolate bars, the chocolates and caramels are pretty much out. However, let's see, we do have some promise. We do have some promise with the Fruitella. That's going to be an interesting go with. This is the Skittles, the large Skittle. It basically just kind of had a hernia and kind of went that direction, but we'll do that one again. This one did some interesting stuff. This was the Curly Whirly, which I thought was a chocolate gummy, but it's basically, instead of gummy, it's a caramel with chocolate. That one, it did some expanding. And this one was a Cadbury drop. It pretty much just melted. And not much from the other ones. They just kind of sat there and did nothing. But doesn't mean that they're going to be totally worthless, is they just might need more time with the heat and the freeze dryer. So we're going to go ahead and do a full load of these and see what happens. I have all my candy laid out. I'm only using 3 trays. So I got about 8 samples per different type of candy. So we're going to go ahead and throw this through the candy cycle, the candy mode, and see how they turn out. This will take a couple of hours, and I'm hoping for the best. The freeze dryer is done, and these are my results, and they come with mixed results here. Well, my favorite of all my candies from the UK or from England are wine gums, and the wine gums didn't do really anything. It just kind of, they're still in the same form and shape. They just kind of got hot and then cooled down. So nothing happened with the wine gums. I had a lot of hopes for that. Now, this Fruitella, these fruit drops, these little things right here. Unfortunately, what happened up here at the top, I had Werther's Originals English Toffee, and they're in this area here, and the Fruitella was here. Well, the English Toffee just kind of exploded. I mean, you can kind of see the mess that it made. And when it bubbled up, the Fruitella was right here, and it pushed everything forward. So the creamy toffee was a bust, but these Fruitellas, some of the ones that survived, made these really nice little delicate, almost like a ping pong ball size of candy. It almost looks like lace work. I mean, they're just totally interesting. Unfortunately, the rest of my Fruitella here got kind of covered up with the toffee explosion, and so these kind of got damaged, but these did not, and they are just the most interesting lace work, lattice work, what are you going to call it, like little teeny snowballs. And I'll have to try one of these and see what it tastes like. Very interesting. This tastes like the inside of a Skittle. I guess because it's all sugar, it probably tastes the same. But these things are supposed to be high in vitamin C. So that's like these little delicate vitamin C balls that you can get from the Fruitella. So the wine gums were a bust. The creamy toffee was a disaster. But so far the Fruitella is something that was quite interesting. And if I was doing this again, I'd probably buy more of these next time I went to England. The next batch kind of had so-so reactions. Now, this is also called Fruitella, but this is like the regular Fruitella that's similar to a Starburst. These are Fruitella fruit drops. So they have the same name, but they're kind of different products. So anyway, this regular Fruitella right here, you know, they used to be like little squares like a Starburst, but they kind of ballooned up like a pillow. And they're very crunchy now. Actually, they're really good kind of a crunchy. They're no longer chewy, but they're quite crunchy. And I wonder if the Starburst would be the same way here in America. Now the giant Skittles, they pretty much did what they did. I have I have 3 of these that didn't do anything at all, but the rest of them did blow up like Skittles would. They're just really big giant Skittles. And then the fruit gums down here, they were kind of like the wine gums. It's kind of got hard. They're still chewy, but it's kind of a hard chewy. So the fruit gums were a bust. The giant Skittles were successful, and the regular Fruitella was also successful. The third tray I had more hopes and dreams on. The little pop-ups, I was really hoping these things would swell up, but the pop-ups didn't do anything. The chocolate is still moist, the center didn't do anything, so it just kind of became, you know, kind of yucky. And then these Trebor, if over there, Trebor, those are kind of like these mints, and a few of them just kind of blew out in the middle and kind of grew tails. So I'm not sure if this would be successful or not, but you have these kind of strange looking things. These are kind of like a Mentos, but I'm not sure how they would react in Diet Coke. I'm not sure if they would explode and give you a fountain, but let's just try tasting one of these. They're kind of hard, chewy not really a pleasant experience. Now, the last ones are these Cadbury Curly Whirly Squirrelies. Curly Whirly Squirrelies, made by Cadbury. Caramel on the inside, chocolate on the outside. And these were a pleasant surprise. They kind of kept their shape, and this expanded really big. Now, because it's chocolate, the chocolate on these are still kind of soft, and the chocolate is still kind of warm, but I'll have to try one of these, as much as I don't want to because it's chocolate. But these have a really good, interesting texture. Curly Whirly Squirrelies, the has a little bit of chocolate on the outside, but the caramel kind of crystallized into almost like a malted milk texture. It's crunchy on the inside. So the Poppets were a failure. The Trebor Mints, it failed. But the Curly Whirly Squirrelies by Cadbury, these came out to be pretty interesting. I thought they would be a bust, but they actually turned out to be pretty good. So let's take a summary of everything that we did here. If we took a look at our successful products here, what was successful was the Fruitella fruit drops. These are the little round, delicate little things here. The giant Skittles came out to be pretty good. The Fruitella was really good. So both Fruitella products turned out to be really good. The Trebor Mints kind of failed. The Poppets failed. But the Curly Whirly Squirrelies, they were successful. So all in all, I had 4 successes out of all the candies I brought back. So there you have it. If you ever find yourself in the United Kingdom, you might want to pick up some Fruitella products and maybe some giant Skittles. And don't forget the Curly Whirly Squirrelies from Cadbury. Those are the products that freeze dry rather well. So if you live in England or you live on the continent, you might have, especially the continent, you probably have more opportunities to get different types of candies. But for the UK, those are the 4 success stories that I have for you. So if you get it, try it and see how it turns out for you. For the American cousins across the pond, I'm sorry, but these candies are not available to us. And so you might just have to do without unless you go abroad. But anyway, thank you for your time. I hope this was educational. And go forth and freeze dry the world. And I'll send you another video soon.